lower back pain sufferers, specifically non-specific lower back pain sufferers. That means if you've been suffering from pain more than 12 weeks, but no particular mechanism of injury, and you just can't reduce your symptoms and you just can't self-manage very well, and you're not getting any better, and it's really frustrating. So we know that lower back pain sufferers typically have really specific points or patterns as physiotherapists that we identify very quickly that needs to be addressed. So remembering we need to loosen up things that are tight, and we also need to tighten up things that are loose. Once you start to find that pattern, it's really easy to start getting symptom management or start to reduce your pain quite significantly. Now we're going to talk about a few spots that we really need to address straight away to see if you can actually start to self-manage better. We're looking at our glute medius, our TFL, our erectus spinae, our QLs or quadratus lumborum, our quads, and our hip flexors that come at the front. The first one to start with is your glute medius. Trying to get stuck into the side of your hip looking for a trigger point, remembering that trigger point is an area of muscle tissue that is hypertonic or in a protective state or in an angry state trying to protect your lower back. It's not doing you any favours in the long term, and it can often quite compound your symptom of pain. Good way to really get stuck into it is cross your leg over like that and hunt for that trigger point. Once you've done that, do it on both sides. You'll always find one side is much more symptomatic than the other. We then move on to a really good one called your TFL. Now your TFL is also known as the tensor fasciae latae, and it's about 2 centimeters down from the front of your hip, and there's a bit of a hole there that if you get right on that spot, it'll almost make you sing if it's super, super tight. And if it's super, super tight, you're also super, super symptomatic. The more you address it on like a daily level, the quicker it starts to drop down in that intensity or that hypertonicity mode or that protective mode of your subconscious brain. And then you start to address your pain response. Again, it takes about 60 seconds, but this one's intense, so you really got to drop and allow the ball to dig deep into that sort of hole on the right-hand side of the top of your hip. Try and hunt for it as best you can, because when you find it, you'll know you found it. QLs, or erectus spinae, are best done with 2 balls, 2 spiky balls, 2 cricket balls, 2 hockey balls, 2 trigger point balls, 2 CrossFit balls, whatever you want to call them, but it mustn't be too hard, it mustn't be too soft. There's 2 spots on either side of your lumbar spine that are really tight and locked up. You'll find when you get into that spot, it's a really nice feeling once you do, particularly if you're in that non-specific lower back pain mode. Remembering, if you're in an acute phase of specific lower back pain, you probably don't want to do some of these exercises or these movements because it'll in fact probably make it angrier, and that's exactly the time that you probably be wanting me to talk with your physiotherapist at home or go and see them for a consultation. Once you've done that again for about 60 seconds, remember it should be a good feeling, not a bad feeling, you move on. So we've done our glutes, we've done our TFLs, we've done our QLs, and even done our erectus spinae up and down. We do our quads and also our hip flexors. Now, let me put that in my pocket. Your quads also have a solid impact into protecting your back. And again, if they're really tight, you will start to become more and more symptomatic. Best way to do it is cross your leg over so that you can take the weight of your body. And then you're really moving your body around and angling, normally at that lateral last third of your quad, and getting stuck into the spot that you find is really, really tight, or it has that good sore feeling. You move on, you do it on both sides, remembering you focus on the side that is most angry or most specific to what you need to do on the day. And each day can change and not necessarily of any particular pattern. So you just hunt for what's angriest and then you address it. Your next one, and probably your most important, if we had to argue which was more important, is your neural stringing. So when you're in protection mode, particularly in our lower back, we get neural sensitization of our sciatic nerve that comes down our leg, and it starts on the base of our bum. The angrier your sciatic nerve, or the more neurally sensitive it is, the more pain you experience on a conscious level. Now imagine your sciatic nerve coming out of your bum, down your thigh, down your calf, all the way down to your toes, like a spider network of nerves that branch off into different tissue of our body. And what we're looking at is you don't stretch a nerve. You can never stretch a nerve, but you can floss or string a nerve. And when you floss or string a nerve, what you actually do, if you imagine a piece of string going through a straw, when it's really sensitive, it's very sticky. You get these little adhesions that connect to the side of the walls of that nerve complex. And when you string it, you're breaking up those adhesions and making it much less gluey or sticky and much more fluid. And when that happens, your pain or that neurally sensitized nerve will really, really get less angry, and you as a person will probably experience a lot less pain. As I said, this is my favorite, and it's probably one of the first things you should try and do. And what you're doing is you're angling your leg in a D shape towards the midline of your body, up towards the back of your shoulder. And when you get into this zone, you'll feel a really sticky, neurally or nervy stretch. Sometimes it might be in your toes, sometimes it might be in your calf, sometimes it might be in your bum. Wherever it's kind of sticky, you will feel. And what we're doing is we're doing about 10 in a row, just taking it to that zone of zinginess and then come out of it. Zone of zinginess and then come out of it. Once you've done it on one side, you do it on the other side. You do about 3 lots of 10. Remembering all of these exercises, you just do it because it's feeling good. Once it's not feeling good anymore, you think you've had enough, that's enough. Try and do it tomorrow. Maybe do a little bit more of something or a little bit less of something, depending on how you experience your symptoms the next day. So that's a really good start to loosen things up. Then next thing, we're going to do a few exercises that are really good core exercises. Remembering your core, it's not like you're walking around with a six-pack. It's much more subtle. And what all the evidence has said, that when we experience lower back pain, 98% of people who have will start to switch their core off on a subconscious level. Now, our core is made up of a few different muscles. We've got our transverse abdominis, which wraps around our lower back like a lady's corset. We've got our pelvic floor, which is at the bottom of our hips and holds all our intra-abdominals up. We've got our diaphragm, which is why we always talk about breathing and why it's so important, and that's everything on the top of our barrel. And we've got our multifidus at the back, which is little muscles that are attached on our lower back all the way up on those individual segments of our spine. Now, when we're doing core work, all I want you to think about is we're turning everything on and we're trying to warm up our engine, because when we experience lower back pain, that engine turns off and that compounds the issue even further. So it's a really good daily movements and exercises to do are the ones that are as follows. Starting off with legs at tabletop. Imagine there's a little jelly bean or a little beetle that's running between the mat and my lower back. You don't want to squash him dead, but you don't want to let him go. So there's a tiny little gap between my lower back and the floor. And what we're doing is put my hands down. We're going to start to tap the floor from right to left, keeping my tummy engaged, drawing my belly button in slightly. And this will straight away start to activate my transverse abdominis, which is our main core muscle, which specifically will start to help my lower back. Now, these muscles are made up of predominantly slow twitch muscle fibers, which means they can work all day, every day, and they're not supposed to get tired. And they're supposed to support my lower back and my inert tissue, like my discs and my ligaments. And when we've experienced pain or we have that pain response, your brain turns it off. And that's that protective mechanism. And there lies the problem. So we want to do, say, as a start, about 40 and see how you pull up. And once you've done 40, you then see in the next couple of days if you can build it up and see if you can do 100, so 50 on each leg. Moving on from that, we're going to go onto our hands and knees. We're going to start with a bird dog. Now, bird dog is going to start to recruit quite a few of our core muscles, including my multifidus and my transverse abdominis. And with our included breathing and making sure that I'm breathing with control in through my nose and out through my mouth, we're addressing that one. The best way to do your pelvic floor is through real-time ultrasound to see if you're doing it specifically, but that'll probably be more related to people who've had quite a lot of trauma down there, so like say pregnancy or prostate cancer. And the best way to go do it is go see your physio and they can do a real-time ultrasound and start to address it. It's very non-invasive and non-embarrassing, so it's a really good start. But if we move back to our bird dog, what a bird dog is the old school hunting dog. What we're looking for is perfection, so trying to get my shoulders nice and square, my lower back is not dipped, I'm not twisting through my trunk. Imagine there's a pole that goes down my head and down my spine, and I'm super straight. And what we're looking at is, take that off, a nice pointy finger and a nice pointy toe, just like I'm doing now. We're looking at trying to build up to a level where you can do 50 on each side, so 100 in total. And I think that's a really good start for loosening up the tight things and tightening up the loose things. See if you can do that every day for at least 2 weeks, and I bet you start to develop an awareness of your own pattern, of the things that you need to address specifically, so you don't have to waste your time doing each and individual exercise to try and reduce your lower back pain or stiffness. If in fact you need to further develop your concepts or your understanding of lower backs and you want to try and increase your core workout that builds on those couple of exercises that I've given you, feel free to message me via Facebook or Instagram at Paul Dardigan, and I'll be happy to send you another video or address your specific questions so that we can start to develop our understanding. Cheers.